as we have said, we have come back from Scotland. So now we are going to look at the amount of charge we put into the car during our stay to how many miles we have done for the whole of the time that we were there. So with that, let's get into those figures. Okay, and as we say, we have our little list. What I've done is what I would normally do when I go away on holiday. I would leave with the car full, and when I come back I would charge up or refill back to full, and then whatever was used for the miles that we have currently done between them 2 points. So no difference now. We're left with a certain amount of charge, and we put that charge back in when we got back home, and therefore we have a balanced amount of this is how many units we've physically used. With that, let us go and let's get going with our figures and how much we've put in. On the first day, as we take it, we went to Dumfries, our usual charge spot, because it was free, but now with the changeover to the new company, the charging amount is now being charged. Now, I didn't know that when I started charging, because there was nothing said about it anywhere, and I do think that chargers should have the prices clearly stated on their display to say that, you would think. But because of what time it was and because the route I was going to do, it was impossible to just put in my small amount of 10 units minimum that would get me to Kilmarnock, because I wasn't going out on that road. So with that, at Dumfries I put in 19.53 units. Now I will call kilowatts, the power that the charger gives you, as units, because they are virtually the same as a house unit, so therefore just call them units. They are the measurement. So 19.53, and that actually cost me £2.93, so under £3 to recharge. So technically I charged up to my 94. I charged up to what I left with. So to get from Newcastle to Dumfries cost me £2.93. And I can't imagine that you can drive any car with any fuel source where it would cost you £2.93 to do 100 miles, or just a smidgen over 100 miles. So we left there. We went to the new charger, which has a video on the channel, Downhill Farm. Now I didn't know that charger was even around, and I actually looked it up on my phone when I got to Girvan, and that charger had someone on and it was getting late and I couldn't be bothered. I thought, well, I'll just continue because I have enough to get further up. So I looked up and this one clicked up at a farm shop, and it was just along the road. So that's why I ended up there, and that was the first time, and that was still on and working. It was all good, and yeah, it was a bit windy, which it always is at the coast, but from there I put in 16.7 units, and strange enough, that charger did not show up on my list of chargers that I had done using my charge card for Scotland. When I left there, we then finished off because I needed to pick up a bit more shopping. I stopped off at Saltcoats, and I had to go onto the slow charger because the big charger was being used and one of the CCSs on one of the units wasn't working. So 4.8 units went in for the time that I was there, so I didn't get up to full, so that was where that ended. So on the first day I stopped 3 times. I didn't have to do the last one at Saltcoats, but there was a charger available, so I put it on. From there, we of course went to Irvine, onto a little rickety, dirty, falling apart charger, and although we were there almost 2 hours, 10.89 units went in. We then went to Stevenson, was the next fill up, 13 units went in there. On another day we went to Airdrie and Motherwell, and we put chargers in there. The Airdrie one was at a charger where the big charger, the big 50 kilowatt, was being used by an idiot who, he had put the plug in but hadn't started the charger off. So he was illegally parked in a free car park, which was big, connected to the charger, which he didn't need, and stopping anyone else from using it. Good boy, e-tron. Boy, these e-tron drivers. So the Airdrie one, it was a very slow charger. Even though we were there looking at all the shops for over an hour, it only put 2.83 units in, which was terrible. We then went along the road to Motherwell, where I had to go onto the slow charger because the fast one was being used. So we went onto the slow charger. I got 7.42 units while we were looking around the shops. I came back, the big charger was empty. I said, bugger it, and put the car onto the big charger and put in 11.28 units, bringing me back up to my 94%. And so I left there with enough charge to do the rest of the day and whatever other time I wanted. After that we were on Johnston, which was a brand new charger that had just gone in, but its condition wasn't as good as what I would expect to do for a brand spanking new charger. Its holder that holds the CCS charger in the unit had broken off and was on the floor. So it did the job, it still charged. I connected up and put 15 units in that day, and that was more than enough to do until the next time. I then charged up at a small charger on another day and put 2.91 units in, and after that it was bad weather, raining, miserable. That's why I didn't do any videos really from, because most of the days were a bit dull and a bit on the side. You know, we virtually had to force myself to go out, and we didn't really do any big trips. The Airdrie one was technically, I think, the longest trip that we did, and it was drizzling when we left, and the weather got better, but it was still a pretty rubbishy time. So we came back after that 2.91 fill up, and we did another day where we went technically out and around and ended up back at Johnston again. When we got to Johnston, 15.02 units. Weirdly, that the two Johnston ones are 15 units, just about the same reading, which takes some doing. Another trip out, we did Port Glasgow, and Port Glasgow was a charger that I had used before, and it was in the car park for the train station bit, so I went onto that one. 12.56 units, almost 2 hours, but we were there that long, messing about looking in shops, so it was surprising I can spend 2 hours there, because there isn't a great deal of shops, but there was enough. Now we are now doing our drive back. On the last day, our drive back was, first stop off was Kilmarnock at our usual arena charger, the one with 5 chargers, and 14.74 units went in. When I came further down, I stopped off at Carlisle Tesco and put on the 7 kilowatt chargers 11.3 units in before arriving back home, and I had 50 miles worth of range when I got home. But then from that we also added the 23.29 units was what I put in at Lildy. So if you've watched the Lildy one, I can't remember how much I put in. It was actually now 23.29 units went in for that £5.82. So with that, that was my total charges for the whole of the Scotland trip, which comes to 181.36 units. And when we work out the mileage that we had, we started off with 12,465 miles when we left home, and after our fill up we had 13,487, so we'd used 1,022 miles between the two fill-ups. Okay, so we had done over 1,000 miles. With that, if you take it how much I paid on the two paid charges of Lildy and Dumfries, I had spent £8.75 for the trip, for the whole of the trip there. At 181 units used for the 1,022 miles, that worked out as an average of 5.6 miles to a unit, which you have to say is pretty good. Now, that incorporates all my types of roads, so fast motorway, 70 mile an hour, and everything, so averaging out, and that also includes any losses. Now if you take it, I put in 181 units. That's what the machine said. That's not what the car might say. There is losses between the machine and the car with heat loss and all of that. So there is a loss between that. So technically the car got less than 181 units, but I still got 5.6 miles, which probably donates that the losses on the cable. I could have easily have got 5.8 or 5.9 miles to a unit. So with that, that was an average of 0.77 watts for each mile. That's pretty good as well. If you take it that we had lots of rain, wind, and not all that nice, but mostly quite fast speeds. A lot of Scotland between the towns are fast 50 and 60 mile an hour roads, so not so much built up area type driving. These are fast roads. Now if you take it, I used 181 units. If I had paid 25 pence, the little price that I paid to charge it when I got home, for all of those units, I would have spent £45 and 25p. Okay, we'll have the 25p for that number of units. So for £45, I did 1,000 miles. So with that, that is the cost for 1,000 miles if I had spent it. I spent £8.75 to do that 1,000 miles because I went on to the free charges. We do realise that in the future that those charges won't be free anymore, and that could be next year. But for now, finding the free charges, main job. So 1,000 miles, £8.75, could have been £45. Still a lot less than what I would normally have spent with my LPG car, because most of these holidays would have cost in the region of about £100 for fuel. So it's under half the amount if I had paid, and it's a tenth at least what I actually did pay to what I would have spent for them type of miles. So with that, please like, comment and subscribe. Hit the bell for your notifications. I will see you on my next video, which, what might it be? Yeah, Okay, bye for now.